What I was thinking about this, how I do a quick introduction without getting into the details and taking away the important time. And I was thinking about how CFA as an organization pivoted just the way farmers had to. And did I turn this on upside down? So, but early on, as the pandemic started, um, from the very core of CFA, we started figuring out how we could respond. And little things like a mask showed our solidarity with people and the needs. And I think it's really cool that we have some symbols like that that show that I think we're going down what we think is the right path. So we'll hope our panel tonight will get into more details about that. And basically what happened, as you all know, is that we got the pandemic started, and not long after that, the issues about Black Lives Matters came together, and the board got very involved in those. The staff was very involved, and early on started doing the best we could do. And we started working with the other organizations, working with the programs that we have. And but what we also saw going on very strongly was a strong interest in local food. So the the CSAs, most of the CSAs sold out much earlier than they did previously. Farmers market demand was greater. If you go to websites of farmers who have meats for sale, it seems like half the categories it says, out of stock, hopefully soon. I've talked to meat processors, and there's some places are looking out, 8-10 months before you can schedule to get an animal processed. So that's going on, and we're trying to figure out how we can learn from that, what the policy implications are that we want to be engaged in. That Kelsey would, certainly right up at speed on those kinds of things. So that's a part of it. We have all the different programs that are part of it. And then how can we build stronger local food systems, build on this? It's taking, not necessarily minimizing the negative side of things, recognizing that they're there, but trying to move forward too. So I'm going to stop there, and we'll move forward.
Thanks, Maggie, and thanks, Lee, for getting us started. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our farm-to-table team. Sometimes when I talk about the farm-to-table team of CFA, people think that means that we're people who put on fancy dinners, but it's a lot more than just one-time events. So our farm-to-table team is working on trying to get more locally produced Kentucky farm fresh foods into all points of the food system. So not just what consumers would buy at the farmer's market and take home and cook and put on their home tables, but we all know that people eat lots of their meals away from home. So also trying to make sure that local foods are getting into use in restaurants, in schools, in other institutions like hospitals, the university, college dining services, trying to make sure that local foods are getting processed and available as shelf-stable and value-added products. Making sure that local foods are getting into food banks for food access programs. So there's a lot of the work that we do is helping farmers to scale up their production to be able to get into those more institutional markets. And also on the buyer side, working with those retailers or restaurant owners to know how to access local foods and what's available and how to work with seasonally available produce. So that's what our farm-to-table team does under normal circumstances, but as you know, this year has hardly been normal circumstances. So we spent months of this year doing nothing that was on our work plan at the beginning of this year. So there was Um, First of all, there was just trying to figure out what was possible this year. And we spent hours in webinars and listening sessions and talking with other organizations about how to problem solve the situations that producers were running up against this year. Our staff spent over 1,000 hours in doing pandemic relief and responding to crises of this growing season. One of the big things that came out of this, our crisis response this year was working with some funders who wanted to help make sure that local food supplies were strong this year, but weren't sure how to help. And we said, well, we can help you figure out how to invest money in our local food system. So together with some funders, we put together the Central Appalachian Family Farm Fund, which was for 20 counties in Southeast Kentucky. It was a small COVID relief grant of up to $750 per farm. And to date, we have awarded $103,000 to 138 farms in Southeast Kentucky. And close on the heels of that, we started the Kentucky Black Farmer Fund, which was for the whole state of Kentucky. And to date, we have given $58,650 to 52 farms that are owned and operated by Black farmers in Kentucky. And we plan on continuing this work. We also, as far as food access programs, did some work with Feed the West in Louisville, where they had their major grocery store closed right at the beginning of the COVID crisis. And so we have given out 7,000 pounds of food to 765 families, and a lot of that being sourced from Black farmers in Kentucky. So we've been busy this year, and some of our producers are going to talk with us now about what it's been like for them to go through this crisis on the other end of things.
So I'm so excited. We have an awesome group of speakers here. I think Andre's joining or in the process of joining, and I don't know if Mr. Cleaver's having a hard time technically, but we haven't spoken with him today. So hopefully he'll be joining us later on. But for those of us that are already here, maybe we could start with Nathan. If y'all can just start by introducing yourself and your farm and where in the state you are, be great.
All right, can you hear me? All right, Nathan Howell. We're in the state of Kentucky, in Allen County. Here representing Needmore Acres Farm, representing my wife Michelle, my 5 kids that farm with us, and all the farm staff that we have. I'm sorry, what was the other part of the question? We were trying to figure out how to do the hands thing.
Oh, you're just fine. So the next question would be, how long have you been farming?
Yes, we've actually been full-time farming for 7 years. Michelle and I both gave up public jobs, 401ks, health benefits, all that good stuff, about seven years ago. I've been truly farming, I guess, all my life. I grew up on a small family farm in Hart County, a diverse farm that was primarily tobacco, beef cattle operation, corn, alfalfa. Just your typical small farm in South Central Kentucky. But to truly say out on our own full time, about 7 years.
Great. And Adrienne, could you introduce yourself and your farm?
Yep. I am Adrienne Eggum. I'm on Stonehedge Farm in Woodford County.
And how long have you been farming?
Since I was 6, full time for 19. I grew up in Anderson County, also on a cattle and tobacco farm. When tobacco was going out, my dad and I started growing vegetables, and as we got better at it, we dropped the cattle as well. But now I've picked up cattle and quail along with the vegetables.
And when did you shift to start farming full time? Like, why did you make the decision?
I made the decision. I had a part-time job during the winter. I waited tables during the winter, but I shifted to farming full time because it allowed me a little bit more flexibility with my kids.
Cool, thank you. And David, are you there? Can you introduce yourself and your farm?
Somebody muted me there. Now can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. David Walker, Walker's Family Farms. We're in Pike County, Kentucky, up in the mountain end of the state. Me and my father, my son and my daughter, they help too. The farming, we always raised a garden. And as I tell people in this story, about 10 years ago as a joke, we started a pumpkin patch. And that got us into this and into value-added stuff. And I'm still a part-time farmer. Have not jumped off the ledge yet, but we do good with what we do and have a good following. And that's kind of where we're at. 10 years ago, we started doing it more for the profit side of the things. We also have a certified commercial kitchen on the farm. We do a lot of value-added products.
Cool, thank you. We definitely want to know more about that later on. Andre, are you there? Are you able to unmute?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well. Do you mind to go ahead and
Okay.
introduce yourself and your farm?
All right. I'm Andre Barbour, in Hart County, Kentucky. We are Munfordville area. We've always had a family farm, so I pretty much farmed all my life, except for the few years I went to Western, and I came back to the family farm. We've always had traditionally tobacco and dairy and tobacco farmers and hog farmers. We added beef cows early 90s. So we always had that. And then when I came back on my own or to the farm, I started my own little enterprises on the farm, which was doing value added to the hogs. So we sell different types of custom hogs, started doing pasta porter chickens, did a few rabbits. As far as the produce, we always did vegetables when we were kids. Well, it was a one crop for crops. We did cucumbers and peppers when we were kids. Quit that for a while. And then when I started doing the produce, I started doing a mixed variety of produce. And so to where we're at today, we used to do farmers markets till today. We do our own little personal farm store and home deliveries.
Cool. And so you've been farming, you said, ever since you came back from WKU. Why did you make that decision to come back from college back to the family farm?
Well, I had did some internships while I was in college. All was with the USDA on different sides of it. Was with the agriculture extension agent and 4-H and partially home economics. And I found out that the office wasn't for me, and the farming was just in my blood.
Cool. All right, everybody. I just got an update from Maggie that Mr. Cleaver won't be able to join us. He had last minute come up with work. I'm guessing his other full-time job. So we can go ahead and get started. Just to remind everybody, the layout of today is going to be, we're going to open up, I'm going to ask questions to the panel in general, and whoever wants to answer them first can have at it. And then we'll have a time after that for anybody that would like to ask questions to speak up and ask away. So this question's a little bit broad, so take it where you want it to go. But this is for our panelists. Has your farm had to pivot or make changes during the pandemic times?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and speak because we had to make a big change this year to where we was just did a few small home deliveries, and our main focus was trying to focus to open up a store. Last year was a good year. This year, we probably did half the sales in the store than what we did last year. And so after we seen what the pandemic hit, we seen that a lot of the people wasn't getting out, wasn't shopping. Everybody was just staying home. And so we pushed our home delivery sales every day of the week, and we tripled our home delivery orders, and it made up our difference from our store orders. And that was a big challenge for the first 2 weeks because we didn't know what we was going to do because the first couple months wasn't even paying the employees or the store rent, electric, utilities, and so forth. And when the pandemic hit, it pretty much almost put us in a pandemic, but we was able to regroup and figure it out and push our home deliveries to make everything balance out.
I guess for us on pivoting, when I read that question, I think our primary pivot point was I'll touch and kind of relate to what Andre just said. Our experience was kind of the opposite. We do CSAs, we do on-farm sales here, like a homestead share where we have 10 families come to the farm and they get their vegetables weekly. And we do their traditional CSA baskets at the local farmers market. We had to make the decision of whether we were going to try to meet the demand of the CSAs that were out there, or continue on our marketing plan that we had already set forth and adjusting the crops the way they need to go, primarily focusing on the farmers market sales. And it was a hard decision. It was hard not to take that all those calls that came in for the CSAs and all those individuals that seemed to be desperate for food. But when Michelle and I sat down and looked at it long term, we actually thought those individuals might be short-lived. Those people that are in a panic, just wanting to make sure they had food. That was a hard decision for us to make because we hate to tell anybody no. But we knew we only had a limited amount of food when the pandemic hit. We couldn't produce a crop fast enough to meet the demand that was being called of us. So we actually decided to kind of go the opposite of what Andre said, and we focused more on direct sales. We were very fortunate. We fought real hard and worked with local health departments, local and state individuals to make sure we were doing everything possible to keep our farmers market open and going. And in doing that, we wanted to provide the opportunity to everybody, not just individuals that wanted a CSA type service. So we wanted to have that availability to anybody that was able to come to the market and felt safe enough. Now, we did have some individuals that did not feel safe coming to the farmers market, so we actually did curbside service at the market. So individuals, we did this for about, I guess, 2 months. Individuals, we put a price or put our list out there of what we had available, and those individuals could pre-order and just pull up and pick it up on the curbside. So it's very, very small contact there actually at the farmer's market, and help those individuals that didn't feel safe enough to actually shop the market. But I guess our pivot was making that decision and not knowing if that was the right decision or not. Looking back, I think it is. I think we built loyal farmers market customers that know that we are going to be loyal to them regardless of what happens. We're not going to sell our product to the highest bidder out there, I guess you would say. That might not be the best quick money for a farmer, but long term, we felt it was right for us to be able to do that.
Thanks, Nathan. Go ahead, whoever just turned.
That was me. Early in the season, I had several customers reach out to me via email, phone calls, and such, asking how they could get my products with the least amount of contact. I tried to do it, just text me what you want, I'll get it together for you, and you could pick it up at the farmer's market. But I was getting 30 and 40 texts and emails a day, so I ended up making an online store where they could order and pay online, and I'd put their name on the bag and put it in a cooler in front of the house, and they could pick it up and never even come in contact with another human. Or we did curbside or table pickup at the farmer's market as well. Now, a lot of our sales generally go to restaurants, so those weren't here. We didn't have those this year. So we had too much produce. Glean Kentucky was kind of limited on what they could take from us. So we set up a pay-as-you-can farm table here at the entrance gate of the farm, so the community could come and get what they need. And if they wanted to drop some change in the jar, that was fine. Otherwise, just take it home and feed your family.
Thanks, Adrienne. David, what about you?
One of the things that we do a lot of the fall pumpkin decorating type stuff. We did not do as much of that this year and planted more in produce to produce more food and not as much decorating side of things. We increased green beans is king in eastern Kentucky, and tomatoes and corn, and that's what we kind of went with and sold more this year than we've ever sold in the bean category. That was one of the things that we looked at early on, and we do the succession plant 2 weeks, plant 2 weeks, plant 2 weeks, and just keep the beans on the vine, and you get done with one, plant them over, and just keep doing that. That's one of the things that we done to provide a lot more in the line of food. We sell at a farmer's market, we sell on farm. Where we were at, there never was really the scare part of the food. And when it happened, we didn't have anything at the time because it was too early. But when it got into 1st of May, we were up having tomatoes and so on to get out and sell to the people.
Thanks, David. So it seems like everybody shifted a little bit, and I want to hear a little bit more about how each of you shifted here in a little bit. This question has been kind of hard to ask to farmers at the Lexington Farmers Market, where I've been working through this. But do you feel that your farm has been hurting or benefited during this time? And in what ways? I'm sure we're not 100% wins here. But I'll open that up. Whoever wants to take a stab at it first.
I don't care to answer this on our part. Produce was way up for us, but value added was way down because we missed out on some super big events that we normally go sell. Apple butter, pepper jelly, maple syrup, big festivals and stuff that got canceled. So when that happens, we lost all those potential sales. And probably in a good thing because you can't get jars and stuff to keep up due to the shortage on the jars. So, it's produce was a win, value added was down, and that was just over 4 or 5 events that we didn't get to go to. Same thing, we do resell to, I say, tourist places, state parks, different things like that, and people just didn't come out and visit. Everyone stayed home. So from the value added side, that hurt us too.
Thanks, David.
Well, being a Lexington farmers market vendor, you know how my season went. We were busier at market than we've ever been this year, and had a lot of folks coming out to the farm, especially for the beef, early in the season. But our production, for whatever reason this year, was also astronomical. We had pepper plants that flat on the ground, covered in peppers that we couldn't get them picked fast enough.
And Adrienne, this question came through in the chat box here for Adrienne and everybody. But would you have thought? I know you put on some of your produce on virtually. Would you have ever thought about going online for orders pre-COVID?
No. It was just keeping the store up to date was probably 8 to 10 hours a week. Keeping the variety that we have, and I tried to have everything in the store, and just keeping it up to date was quite difficult.
Our farm, we actually benefited from it. We actually increased probably 80% due to the people not wanting to get out and go shopping and end up buying our delivery service, our boxes. And not only that, it got me also thinking about doing shipping because we've had people from everywhere from California to Texas all the way up to East Coast wanting to know about if we would ship our product that far. And I looked into it, but because of the short notice, it was hard to get an actual good quote on what it would cost to ship something like that. So that may be something I may try to look into this winter and have a shipping option. And some of the quotes I got, I had actually told the customers what it would cost to ship, and a lot of the customers didn't care about the shipping price because they were more or less looking for a good quality product. Because evidently, these places where they live, they don't have access to real fresh local food, and so we kind of benefited for 2 ways. And the ones that lived out of state, they were telling their family members in this state that lived in this state, and we ended up delivering to them, and they went from just trying it for one time, ended up more than every week for the entire season. So we picked up a lot more loyal customers this summer they're already texting about for this coming season. So I think in the long run, it's actually going to benefit the store as well because then we're going to get our regular customers back at the store on top of our new customers that we picked up along the way this year.
Andre, did you have to figure out how you're going to get the deliveries to happen? Because you said you were doing some, but you weren't doing it to this scale, were you?
No, I wasn't, because I had been doing all the deliveries by myself. And what happened was I ended up setting up certain regions on certain days. So like when I was going to Louisville, Kentucky, I had some of my family members who wasn't working on Fridays when I delivered to Louisville. There was actually 3 to 4 of us delivering every Friday across Louisville. And so that helped them out, helped them and their family to make income when they didn't know where they was going to make the income for the week, pretty much, when they were laid off from work or they was only working, their full time's only working a couple of days at their regular jobs, and they kicked in and helped me out. And so now they already got their schedule set for next season to not even to have Fridays off, to where they can pick up their extra income next season. And then now with that happening, there's I'd be able to even to reach out even more. I didn't get to reach the Lexington area just because everything was happening so fast. I couldn't have enough time to try to get.
Andre, are you there? Do you get muted?
Hello.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
I don't know what happened. So it was a challenge trying to get the deliveries going, and after we seen the customers was really moaning in it. So once they started paying, I had no option then but to start finding some delivery drivers.
Cool. All right. We have some questions rolling in the chat box, so I'm just gonna offer those up real quick. Let's see here. One of the first came from Sister Kathy. She asked about how, I know some of y'all have other full-time jobs, but how are you all getting health care, if you are, as a farmer right now?
Mine is through my wife's work. She's a teacher, so I get insurance through her work. So, of course, hers is on season, so she actually helps during the fall season. But that's where her insurance comes from. It's through her employee.
And David, you said you get your health insurance through your full-time job. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Adrienne, what about you?
We have private, pricey health insurance through the exchange.
Nathan, you mentioned that you and Michelle had opted to leave your insurance and your 401ks. What are y'all doing for that now?
When we first left, we had pricey insurance. We actually had a policy that was for pretty much medical emergencies. Now we're under the state programs and like the Obamacare type insurance. Yeah.
And here's another one from the chat box from Lori. Were there things that any of you all tried when the pandemic was first starting that just didn't work out? Nathan, your mic's still on. Did you all try anything that didn't work out for you?
I wouldn't say it didn't work out. We just didn't like the stress and the extra work of doing it. But it was taking those curbside orders and posting. It just wasn't our marketing plan that we had to go out there with. We weren't set up to do it right, and we did it because there was a few customers that needed that at the time. But to say it really worked good for us, I would say it did not. I would like to add, go back to the previous question, just like all the other farmers, it sounds like monetarily, we've been very blessed this year. Our sales have doubled. Other than restaurant sales, of course, they went to, I think we only made like 2 restaurant sales the entire season, which wasn't a big part of our marketing anyways, but that did go to absolutely nothing. We did our community partner strengths with local schools, the local health department, and those type programs, those value-added programs that we do on farm. Unlike the other farmer, ours, I wouldn't say double, but they went up quite a bit. I'm not for sure exactly what percentage, but those were programs like going into lunchbox meals, going the summer school feeding programs and stuff of that nature. Food pantries really picked up extra food this year, and just a lot of extra experimental programs that the farm is experimenting with healthy dietary type programs has really increased. On the flip side of that, I would say, just as most Americans would probably say, their stress level has increased during this. And it's no different here at our farm. I'm not for sure if it is controllable, of course. All stress is controllable, but I guess the part that hit us the most was the emotional stress. As I said earlier, we had to tell people no, and we don't like doing that. We would like to have a yes on everything, but even food pantries, one of the local food pantries we have worked with for ever since we started, 7-8 years, called and needed more food. We just had to say no at the moment, and we sat down and developed a program where the next plantings that we could increase that number. But that initial call, we had to say no to. So just that extra stress of those emotional, seeing the people in need, we're still trying to recover from, I guess, and trying to get caught up to. The only other stress necessarily the farm had was, it sounds like most everybody had this one, but dealing with our proteins on farm. We raise hogs, beef, and pasture poultry, and just trying to process and get those in scheduled has been a nightmare this year. And trying to keep that supply on hand has been a lot of extra work that really doesn't need to I guess, be there for us. And like I think Lee said, scheduling out, 8-10 months. We went ahead and scheduled out 2 years. Beef, pork, and I've tried that on chickens, but we've had a major issue here on farm with cancellations from processors on chickens and trying to find just individuals that will do them now. So that stress has been there on the farm for us. And one early thing was obtaining seed in any kind of volume. Seemed like earlier there was a lot of hoarding of. We're small scale, small pack seeds, 1,000 count seed things, and those were all gone. When I went to order my summer stuff, which I normally order, month, 2 months in advance, and most of those varieties and so forth that we really rely upon were not available, or if they were available, they were in quantities that were way more than we would ever use in our lifetime.
Did any other of the folks that are meat producers, did y'all have trouble getting processing dates as well?
We were very fortunate that we processed 2 steers in February before all of this started. But then I had another one that had been reserved for something else that didn't end up happening because of the pandemic. And I called around and finally got a processor to take pity on me because the bull kept letting himself out. he would just push against the fence and let himself loose. And I finally got a processor to take pity on me to get one in August. Now my quail processor is still closed. She doesn't think she's going to reopen, so I'm going to have the joy of finding another processor for the quail.
Yeah, that can't be a too common of a processing situation with the quail. Andre, do you do meat as well? Did you have a hard time finding processors?
Yeah, well, yes. For my the one I use in Bardstown Booms, we had hogs process or hogs scheduled to process when the pandemic hit. That changed his whole processing facility plans. And so like he does all my brats and so forth. So I didn't get to sell any brats or special butterfly chops that I normally have because not every processor does everything. So I use two different USDA processors on my pork and beef. And the only place that I got to do my pork was from was it's called Hometown Butcher now, which was Fair Play in Dairy County. And I just went ahead. I had actually scheduled 20 dates for hogs back in April, March. I actually back in March for this entire year. So I had our I don't know. I guess over the last few years I've learned that it's hard to sell whole hogs, especially to people, and they don't know how to find process or anything. So I was went ahead and I guess I got smart for once and scheduled 20 different dates with so many hogs on each date for this entire year for my personal USD use and then regular custom for customers that we raise hogs for. They're off the farm. The poultry, I did the same thing. I had already scheduled my poultry dates back early April when I got my first batch in for throughout this year that was had to be processed over in Crabtree or Crab Orchard, I'm sorry, and that worked out good. So I'm actually getting my plantings and stuff done for next year, so I can try to stay ahead and that way to have to hopefully not have this problem again. But like in Boone's case, he stays busy all the time, so it's hard to get in with him. Period. And if you don't book with him early a year out anyway, you're almost out of luck anyway.
Yeah, I know we had. I'm not sure if any other producers are poultry producers, but we've had major issues with processor in the Hopkinsville area. Just like Andre said, we scheduled these chickens back in March, and they weren't even supposed to be processed until this past Monday. And about 10 days, 2 weeks before processing date, a gentleman calls me and informs me we're canceled on 500 birds. So then we started calling around, and very fortunate. It sounds like the same gentleman Andre's talking about in Crab Orchard was able to get us in, and we're only going to be about a week to 10 days later than what we should have been on those birds. So that I'm very thankful for him over there. Not for sure what's going on with the processor too. He said he had to cancel 60% of his clientele over there.
Yeah, Nathan, I was helping Joe Weber process ducks this past weekend, and I think he said he also just got canceled. There's a question from Martin. He was wondering if the farmers on the call would be interested in on-farm poultry processing if Kentucky would permit it.
Yes, I've actually looked into doing even putting in I just call it a slab for like. I guess I'm looking at it a little bit different than what you was talking about. Just doing actual on-farm process like poly face farms and over in Virginia, I guess it is. But we actually looked into doing like the slab pour to bring the mobile unit from KSU down to our property, but with all the restrictions and the cost of putting all that in, we didn't even. I just stopped trying doing plans for it. But something soon is going to have to be done here within mine and Nathan's area because between me and him, we got to drive 2 or 3 hours one way just to get any type of fowls processed.
Yeah, it's
There
going
is
to
a
be.
big demand here.
That's true, Andre. I've got to leave. I'm going to have to leave at 2:30 in the morning to get there to Cleav. From here, it's about a little over 3 hours.
Right.
To get there. It's a long haul. To answer your question about on farm, I would probably not be interested at 300 to 500 birds at a time. Just too much for me to manage on farm processing for that. And I like to grow them in larger amounts and just get them out of the way and focus more on vegetable production than growing a small batch here and a small batch there to process.
That makes sense. Adrienne, would you process your quail on farm?
If somebody else would actually do the processing. I get a little too attached to the birds to do it myself.
That makes sense too. David, I can't remember right now. Did you have any livestock at all? Or just veg?
No. We just do the vegetable value added stuff.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Can you all think of a day that has been just really good during this pandemic time? It's a little bit harder to think about than like the really, really hard days, but is there a really good day during this time that y'all can remember?
Mine was pretty much every Friday's due, just because pretty much 90% of our customers, they were looking forward to the box deliveries. And even though when we initially went to our box deliveries, we told them that we still want to maintain the social distancing, and so they were still staying at the door, or as soon as we walked off the porch, they would step outside the door and just chat for 15, 20 minutes. So that was just an awesome deal, just to talk to your customers face to face, even though you couldn't talk to them like you normally would in a store or out on the streets. And that was my highlight every week, is just talking to the customers and telling all the recipes or the dishes they fixed each week with each items they had with produce or vegetables they never even ate before, even tried. And they loved the box just for that reason, because it forced them to try new vegetables. For example, eggplant, that one they either don't have access to or never even knew what an eggplant was.
There have been a few. The day the revolution began, when the flowers and fruit started to bloom at Brianna's Roots, because a lot of people got to experience farming that hadn't before, and see the whole process, and the kids love it, not just the kids. So it's been difficult. It's been different, especially as an artist. As an activist, it's been revolutionary. I'm excited about the whole process. So it's been, there's still a few more months to go and many great things to come. Kudos to everybody that made it this far. That part. Abundant blessings, namaste.
What about you, Adrienne? Can you think of a day that went really well?
Most Saturdays went really well. I enjoyed meeting lots of new customers and a lot of the regulars trying new things this year. I guess that they were at home more, so they had more time to cook, and I made a lot of new friends this year, because they would reach out on social media or an email or text me or whatever, and send me pictures of what they made. When I suggested something, and like Andre said, eggplant was big this year. A lot of people tried eggplant for the first time.
Well, and you have about 6 different varieties of eggplant for people to pick out at the market.
Yeah.
What about you, David? What was a really good day that you had this year?
We had several good days. We set up almost every Saturday at the Pikeville Farmers Market. I'm a people person. Saw Sister Kathy up here earlier. She knows that. She knows I'll sit and talk forever. But once people started getting back out, coming to the market, coming to get their stuff, we done home deliveries too, and I don't know, just bringing it and sitting it on the porch. That's not me. We enjoy the talking to the farmer or talking to the customers. We picked up a lot of new customers this year. That was one of the positives of this year. And I think someone else asked, how do you keep this going? I think a good product will help you maintain good customers. The ones that's just buying for today to try to get through something. And that's something I always say to people. I don't want to sell you something today. I want to sell you something from now on. And that's kind of one of the things that I've always looked at.
Well, and just to carry that on, David, this is to the group as well, but somebody else had put in the question bar, how do you have a plan for continuing this momentum that you've gotten? I've heard from all y'all, it seems like sales are up, more folks are reaching out. Do you have a plan for trying to keep people buying from you throughout the winter?
Our produce, we have a high tunnel. Hopefully this weekend they're calling for 30. I think we can get through that. But we've got cold crops out. We'll maintain those long as we can till freeze gets them. But then after that happens, we kind of step back through the winter. We'll start back in January, February with maple syrup and get started back into the planting. And we raise a lot of peas in the spring in the high tunnel. First crop, we plant peas. We get them up and out, then get tomatoes in, and we go on. Just seems like a never-ending cycle. Here in Eastern Kentucky, we don't have the privilege of a lot of acreage. There's too many mountains. You got to grow what you can grow and grow it where you can grow it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Nathan, I don't think we heard about your Solid Good Day, did we?
I'll chime in like everybody else there. I've really enjoyed the one-on-one. Makes me appreciate it a little bit more, the conversations that you can have one-on-one at the farmer's market with your customers. I was taking a little of that for granted, but pre-COVID, and it just brings it back down to that. It really is that relationship between the producer and consumer. And I think that's probably why we saw everyone is kind of seeing the success they are this year. You don't have very many changes there to mess up or to break in the system and getting food to the end consumer. I think that was pretty important for us to see in a pandemic, the role that we play as a small farm, what we actually can provide. So just as they said, going to the market, seeing the consumer, and just being able to appreciate more what we're trying to do. We grow vegetables, but we also are growing kids, so it gave us more time to be able to spend with them and really appreciate the time that and what we're doing. Yeah.
That does answer.
There's a chat that came in, Nathan, for you that is from Sister Kathy, and she just wants to know if you think the small farmer was an asset this year.
I think it was to a limited consumer. As Andre said, those that had transportation to the market for us, those were our consumers. His consumer was the individual that didn't have transportation. So I think small farmers were able to meet both needs there. I think through the farmers market that we participate in, I think we were a great asset to those lower income families with particular programs that were available to them this year, and being able to meet the demands they actually had also. That was critical, not only to us as a farmers market, but us as a farm and individuals. And to finish that question, I'm not one of those that also believe that we are small farm enough in Kentucky to support a major disaster. I truly believe that what we saw in the very beginning days showed that, and that's why I say we have a lot of emotional baggage that we're carrying, because we had to tell people no, just because we could not meet the demand. And even my neighbors are a large Mennonite community that is one of the top 2 producing vegetable communities in the state, and they couldn't even meet that demand that's there. It's just the distribution and globalization of just produce itself, let alone food. We're not in that kind of system anymore. Not to say that we're not important, definitely, but to be able to support everyone is overwhelming to me as a small farmer.
Did somebody else open up their mic and have something to say? Okay. There's been a few more questions roll in here, and I think we'll open it up just to whoever has questions to go ahead and answer after we address this last one. I had it in my mind just a second ago. How can people support your work this winter? For our produce folks that focus on produce, those things are starting to level off. For some folks, the season's over. So how can folks support your work throughout the winter?
For us, I'm looking at trying to do our. Right now, we're just open on Saturdays now here at the store. Just come in on Saturdays and just buy them what we have available now, like broccoli and cabbage, local apples that we have in. Looking at maybe getting in some oranges possibly, and of course our meats that we just had processed this week. So even just buying, even just small quantities every Saturday, just to keep I like to do just to keep the customers in contact with us. Just keeping that one-on-one face, that one-on-one talk going to leading back up into the spring production again. And so that's my plan. My plan is really not just to try to get money; it's just keeping the interaction with everybody and let them know, hey, we're still planning for next season. We're planning, want your thoughts and feedback, and just keeping them so they don't forget about you, because you don't have some kind of interaction or communication over a 6-month period. Customers will forget, and you can't let them forget, because it's hard to get them back, because they'll get sidetracked and never think about produce until about July when it's mid-season. And then you didn't plan on counting that number of people into your seasonal plan.
Yeah, I agree with that, Andre. We're a little bit different that in the growing. We actually grow year round, and we do that intentionally. And we started out doing that intentionally, just to prevent what Andre's talking about there, having to redevelop that relationship. So we're able to keep that relationship going throughout the winter. But Andre is definitely right in saying that. Just if you can provide anything, I think keeping that relationship would be critical. And also, I wanted to go back to the previous question too, and I forgot to chime in there, but it was about here at the farm. We don't want to budget on such increases in the future, if that makes sense. So our sales have gone, double. I'm not planning to continue that on. Not saying that the bubble's going to burst or it's going to go down drastically. I'm sure we've convinced a lot of people that our products are worthy of coming back, but I'm not banking on that, I guess I should say. We're not buying new cars and new swimming pools and all that good stuff. We are keeping our heads about us and just steady growth, slow steady growth is our plan. But when I read that initial question and heard you say it the second time, I think what would be great for us as a family farm, and this is us receiving it and giving it would be just grace throughout the year. We're not perfect. We can't meet all demands. We do the best we can. And if we could have that grace, hopefully we can return it.
We don't sell through the winter. One, I can't take the cold, and I've had a few health problems this year, so we're taking the winter off. But I stay connected with my customers through social media, through Instagram and Facebook, and make posts quite frequently just to keep them interacting with the farm.
That makes sense. So thank you all so much for letting me ask you my own questions and taking up all the time. It seems like we have a few questions that I haven't addressed personally. So if you asked a question in the chat box and I have not asked it for you, you can go ahead and do that now. There's some good ones in there. Y'all don't be shy.
I had a question come in about how farmers are thinking and feeling about climate change at this time. The panelists that are on the call, what are their thoughts around that?
I'm not for sure if it's climate change, but we try to prepare ourselves for anything and everything here on farm. You can see 20, 30 degree swings in temperatures in the middle of the winter, to droughts one week, and the next week you've got 6 or 7 inches of rain. So we're definitely seeing different growing conditions than what I remember growing up. I'll put it that way. Now, growing up, I wasn't as involved with the crops. I was there, but not necessarily looking at the weather like I do every day now, especially growing in wintertime. That's about the first thing and the last thing I do during the day is just check to see what, the 10 days going to be. So it's definitely on our mind, or on our minds here at the farm, whether it's global warming or what it may be. it's definitely there.
Well, for us, as past tobacco farmers, we always had that problem of trying to adapt to weather. So it's more or less just how quick can you change something within a few hours is the main thing. So it's not really anything you can just plan for. It's just having a quick response, a quick reaction. Really, in my personal opinion.
I agree with them. It's in hours. It's not in days anymore.
Adrienne, did you have something to share there?
Yep, I can see that they're saying, within hours, the temperature swings seem to be much worse now than even when I first started growing vegetables. Like the Mother's Day frost or the Mother's Day weekend frost this year. In my nearly 20 years of growing vegetables, I had never seen a frost that late.
What about you, David?
Let me get unmuted. Here we do have a lot of swings. We do. There is things that we just can't control. Weather's always one of those. We really, and I agree with everybody else, you have to pay attention to stuff that you didn't think about. 2 or 3 degrees makes a world of difference, whether it's in the spring or if it's in the fall this time of year. I know this weekend one forecast said 28 Saturday night and another one saying 35. So which is it going to be?
I'll tell you one thing we do as a farm to counter that is we've actually started using varietals that are more common to the northwest section of the United States. And when I say that, I'm talking about late fall, winter production versus your typical East Coast varieties. And those varieties seem to do a little bit better in the conditions that we've had in the past few years. But as everybody said, next year could be the polar opposite. That's what we see here in Kentucky. That's so drastic. You just don't know. You don't know what card to put down first. It's a constant gamble, I guess, or guess of what something that we have no control over is going to be.
Another question that came through but nobody's asked just yet is, did you all feel as if you were more of a support to your customers this year than in past years? And then along with that, Nathan addressed this a bit, but were there any signs of extra mental fatigue from customers or your own crew that you felt like you were dealing with this year?
Most definitely, on both questions. I was asked so many more questions about my different products this year, whereas, a normal regular who always buys shishito peppers, well, he would start at one side of the table and work his way and ask questions about products that he had never bought. And I guess I broadened his culinary horizons a little because he started trying new things. And definitely with the stress of market at the Lexington market, we were so adamant about the social distancing and wearing your masks. And by the end of the season, I was threatening to get a super soaker to squirt people that weren't social distancing properly, because one of my employees is a cancer survivor, so her immune system isn't the greatest. My daughter worked for me, and she was on medicine for rheumatoid arthritis, so her immune system wasn't the greatest. So we needed people to wear their masks and behave themselves. So it was a little more stressful just trying to get everybody to follow all the new rules.
I think that it was stressful to our customers, and I go back and bring up the jar thing again. A lot of customers in our area, they buy stuff and can it to eat in the winter. And I know Nathan mentioned the seniors. We do a lot of programs with the seniors and at the Pikeville Farmers Market, and it bothered those people that they couldn't put up stuff for the winter. I mean, you could tell that it did, and they would tell you that. We really wish we could buy stuff, but we want to buy it to put it up to keep, and we just can't do that. We can't find jars. If we got jars, we can't find lids. Nathan mentioned earlier about seeds. There was more people this year, in my opinion, grew a garden than there had in 30 years. And that was a good thing. It was good for people to have. It gave them something to do, something to break the monotony. But a lot of them just didn't understand how to do it. And they were back at the farmer's market, asking pawners, can you help me? And we helped everybody that asked. And they appreciated it. And once theirs was gone, they were back buying like always.
A couple things on that question from here. Can it, make sure I'm on mute.
We can hear
Okay,
you just
the
fine.
first one is okay. The first one is a lot of our mental stuff came from our customers because it's like they would call 2 days before delivery, making sure they got the delivery, and they didn't want to miss that delivery, and it put them in a panic because they weren't for sure if they was going to get to eat that week or not, which was a good thing. The second good thing was I like actually about the seed. It started out kind of good for the home growers because they was going good. The weather was just right for them. But by the time end of June, July hit, that's when we saw the store actually pick up because they didn't know how to adapt to the weather, to the changes, and how to do the production of the vegetables. And there were so many customers that came in and said this will be their last time trying to do a home garden. They're gonna leave it to the professionals. So to me, I think this was a good year to give those type of customers a good opportunity to try to grow their product, and they can see what we as farmers or producers go through trying to produce foods for the community. And I think that earned a lot of respect. And now I think those will be pretty much lifetime customers now.
Yeah, Andre, I'll second that. I remember the recession of '08. I was still working extension work and saw more home gardens during that time and saw more people not growing home gardens the next year. It's just because of what you said. I think it gives consumers a greater appreciation of what small farmers and farmers markets are doing.
Lee, do you want to go ahead and ask your question that you put in the chat box there?
Sure. You've all been telling us about your situations and valuable insights. How common is your situation the same as the other farmers? So if you look at the other farmers at the farmers market, you've talked about growth in sales, but then land limits, input limits, access to processors. Tell us about what the other farmers, and you're looking maybe your neighbors as well as other farmers at farmers markets? What's their situations?
I would say at the Pikeville market, the ones that put forth an effort, they had a good year. Some people didn't for whatever the reason. Weather could be, but the people that put forth an effort, they all had a good year.
I think same can be said at our farmers market. Also, to add to that, it depended on what marketing channel you went with. We had some producers that decided to pull some of the product from the market itself and sell it other avenues. And I think that is continuing to be somewhat successful, but I think they're starting to see that, see some of that panic wear off, and those front door drops aren't nearly as demanding as they once were. And they're coming back to the market expecting their sales to be what it was when they left, type deal. And also, I think that in speaking with the Mennonite community over here, I think those individuals that rely highly on the restaurant sales, most of their sales go to individuals that are selling in restaurants and so forth. They were really anticipating a low year, but I think the mom and pop regular buyers that sell on the road stands or storefronts and so forth like that really filled that gap up. And like I said, they were actually struggling to meet that demand at times. And I think the individuals at the market itself, again, meat producers, poultry producers, they were seeing the same issues across the board with getting into processors. And normally, a beef will carry you so many weeks through the market. Well, that beef was gone the first couple of days of market after pandemic, and they couldn't get into a processor. They couldn't get caught back up. So we were all seeing that side of it. And it was just decisions that individuals made as individual farms as a marketing scheme that we saw and still seeing played out at the market. And we'll see how the winter goes.
Did anybody else want to touch on that question? No? Okay. This is a little off topic, but it's related. To any of the panelists, do y'all see specific policy issues that are impacting your farms right now? Part of CFA's work is addressing policy, and membership dollars go towards our lobbying efforts. So what policy issues do you all see facing your farms presently, if you know of any?
All these doggone permits got high for every little thing you want to do. That's for us, a small farmer. That's a lot of money going out to have a permit for this type of cannon, a permit to sell this, a permit to, just for an example, like here at the store, like for me to try to sell a milk, even though it's a processor milk, eggs, if I try to sell over so many and stuff, a permit for each one of those, that adds up over, that's quite a bit of money that adds up in, we're not here trying to be a Walmart or Foods, Save a Lot or Fruit Save, what's the other food chains, Food Line, all these. We're not trying to be them. We're actually here like a roadside stand selling actual local farm products. And to me, that's punishing us. And a lot of it is, I think, it's because these big grocery chain stores got the money compared to our lobby, our our own our own community representatives to work against us, and something's got to be done with that soon. Because if that keeps up, there's not going to be very many small farm roadside stands or little stores in the next 5 years.
Thanks, Andre. Anybody else want to touch on that?
I know here we
I'll
were
say
greatly.
something on this.
Nathan, you want to go ahead, and then David?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, David.
What I was going to say was them trying to raise these commercial permits for the people that had a commercial kitchen. I mean, that had a lot of us this year up in the air. You know, to go from $120 to $2,400. I mean, that was a big. And thanks to you all and everybody else within the state, everybody came together to voice their opinion. And for the small farmers, it did get it lowered back down. If that would have got pushed through, we would have shut our commercial kitchen down. There just wasn't enough there to cover that amount of money.
That's the exact same topic I was going to talk about. Probably same here. It would have probably ended a lot of good experimental programs that we're doing with school systems, with food pantries. Some of the things we're trying to be innovative with would have probably come to an end. It would have been hard to be able to justify that drastic of an increase, and we are grateful for all the help throughout the state that everybody came together for us as small farmers.
Nathan and David, Nathan or David, can y'all both mention that it was a pretty drastic increase? What was that increase going to look like for your farm specifically?
The way I understood ours was almost 1,000%. I'm looking at Michelle to double check that, but I think that's what it was, wasn't it? And also, the thing that was really concerning us, we have 2 other individual small businesses that use our kitchen, and they are inspected individually. So that would have been in addition to them, and in addition to our fee, that their fees would have been increased too. So it would have been somewhere around $5,000 to $6,000 to inspect a kitchen that's literally 10 foot by 20 foot.
But now, air fee would have went from the $120. I think it was $2,400, and that was just because we make hot pepper jelly. That was one of the things that was going to run it on up.
Yeah, I think that's about what ours was going to increase to, somewhere in that little above $2,000 amount. And ours was because we actually process pretty much raw vegetables.
Does anybody else have anything they want to say about that specific policy or change that was in the pipeline to happen? Kelsey, I think Kelsey had a question, a different policy question to ask y'all about.
Thanks, Shelby. Hey, y'all. Yeah, I was just curious for any of the producers on the panel or anybody else who's just participating in this ag chat. So if you don't know me, hello, I work for CFA. I do policy things. We've been advocating for our federal legislators to pass COVID relief packages that work for small farmers and food insecure folks. And they're still coming up with more aid packages. So I'm just wanting to hear from y'all if there's any support that you need that we can be advocating for on your behalf. And along with that, like if any of y'all have gotten funding through like the CFAP program or something, like if there's any changes with the programs that are already in existence, what would be helpful?
Well, I just did the CFAP one yesterday for the sales on produce because pretty much the rest of the year I'm not gonna really have any big sales or anything that's gonna make a big difference about the job. So I just went ahead and turned mine in while everything was fresh on my mind and on the computers and so forth before we got busy working for next year's stuff. So I mean, I think I don't have any complaints on that as far as what could be improved. I think it was done fairly well. And thank you all for everything you've done to try to help make us a little extra, or not, I don't say extra, for making up the difference of what we lost during the season.
Andre, do they go on this year's sales or is it 2019 sales?
I was told it was from this year's sale, from this whole year's sale.
Okay, I might be thinking of a different program then. Is it through the FSA office, or is this something else?
Right.
Yeah.
Through the FSA office.
Yeah. They I don't know. They asked me for 2019 sales. Yeah, I was grateful for any assistance. That's for sure. It allowed us as this farm to do projects that probably wouldn't have gotten done, in the next couple of years. So it gave us a little extra cash flow to do those projects. I was actually surprised at the dollar amount that, as a small farmer, that we were able to get from that program.
David, did you have anything to say about that?
I have something in relation
My
to
internet freezing up.
Nathan, why don't you go ahead? It sounded like David was trying to say his internet was freezing up.
Okay. Yeah, if he breaks in, I'll let him talk. One thing that I've tried to ask for help and to get improved is the non-insurable crops insurance, and to be able to get those at a point where they're feasible to actually look at as insurance. Right now, it's just not a program set up for small scale farmers, and especially diversified small scale farmers. It's a program, in my opinion, set up for large individuals. And when I say large individual, to be worthy of the insurance, I would think it would be 20, 30 acres of one commodity type farms, where I'm assuming most of the farmers in this chat and around the table are like us. I mean, we don't grow a lot of one thing, but we do grow a lot of everything.
Yeah, I don't even fool with that one. Like, I just overlook because it's a headache trying to figure even where to start at, how to keep up track of something for that. And so, like, make it sounds actually useless for us.
I know it. I keep fighting it and keep in it and keep trying to educate myself in it just to try to make it. And I don't know if it ever will be anything that's useful for small farmers, but
Right.
just try to stay in it so I know what's going on. And as we're under Michelle's name in the FSA, so under a female farmer, we're at the 50-50. It doesn't cost us anything. So I'm in the process of, since it doesn't cost us anything other than, like you said, time to try to keep up with the records and so forth of it, I'm more interested in trying to make it something that can be useful down the road for small scale farmers. And if we could do that for Kentucky, that would be great. Because there is, I mean, all these guys will tell you, there's no insurance policy that you can buy out there that's going to protect you. And we're talking high risk products. And even in the wintertime, the way the program's set up now, they do not even, I cannot even get any type of insurance on pretty much any of my fall crops. So we're talking broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage that's in the field right now. Their planting dates don't even exist for me to get those. And those are the best time to have fall crops or have crops of that nature in Kentucky, in my opinion, especially in our region, where it's much more riskier to do some of the crops in the spring, where the insurance is available. So if you were if my personal opinion of the deal, if you were not honest, and if you wanted to be a larger producer, individual could take advantage of the system in the springtime in the state of Kentucky and probably make money on it with buyouts and so forth like that. It's just, I don't know who we need to get around the same table to have that conversation, but I've been trying to do that for a couple of years now and not getting anywhere. I get started and then get busy. It's not anybody's fault but mine.
Were you saying that you're trying to figure out a way to push farm insurance for the smaller scale crops?
Well, just like Andre said, the system that's there now, it doesn't benefit the small farmer is not worth the policy that it is. Even at the buy-up level, you wouldn't even cover plant costs or the cost of input costs. You wouldn't even cover that, let alone potential income.
And so you're saying you're trying to figure out how we could work to shift that?
Yeah, and to get the yields up, they base it on yields and plant spacings. For example, tomatoes are on such a spacing requirement that's not the production that's in the state of Kentucky. There's no tomato producer that produces the way their guidelines are, and it limits your yield to a point that it's not. You're never going to meet the production or the requirements they have to have a policy that pays out. Does that make sense? Just to give you an idea, like I said, we just do the 50-50 because it doesn't cost us anything, and I'm trying to learn the system. But we had a claim on, we had pretty much a 100% loss claim on some winter squash last year. And what crop out in the field would have been a couple $1,000 income, I think it paid maybe $60, $70 back to us. So it's things like that. it just needs a lot of work, I guess.
All right, let's try to pull us out of the minutia of policy chatting. What, I guess it goes a little bit along with this, but if each of the panelists could talk a little bit about what's the thing or things that are keeping y'all up at night right now as farmers going through this kind of weird time. Adrienne, we haven't heard from you in a little bit. Would you like to address that first?
Well, my season is essentially done, so I guess the only thing keeping me up at night is making sure that the cattle get fed through the winter. We've got a good hay crop, and good silage crop, so I think they'll be okay. But this is my downtime. So in about a month we'll start seed orders again, and I'm training one of my employees how to do it this year, so she can eventually take over the farm. I've already found my replacement, but so I'll be teaching her. But I had a good season. I got to do my taxes still, got to do all the receipts, but I'm sleeping pretty good right now.
Well, that's good to hear. David, did you get your internet back up and running, or are you still running slow over there?
Yes, I'm back up. I think cloud went by. But we're winding down now. We're finishing up on some tomatoes. Been selling a lot of local restaurants. We've got them having fried green tomatoes here for a few weeks for specials. We're trying to get a high tunnel cleaned out of the stuff that we know is not going to make it through. We get that finished up. We'll try to rest for a few weeks, and then we'll have to start back on the maple syrup lines and getting stuff ready for that. Make sure we got plenty of firewood and so on, and we'll be back into that. That'll get us through the spring.
Andre, what about you?
Well, mine's not just this time of year. Mine's all season long, all year long, because I'm always trying to keep food prices the same or affordable. I don't like to raise the prices. I try not to raise the prices. So I'll just try to keep whatever I can either way to keep everything affordable. So I don't have to raise my prices or keep changing prices up and down all year long. I like to stick with one price pretty much the entire season. It makes it easier on the customers and themselves and employees. Now I'm always just trying to stay a step ahead, and I always try to have something new to add every season to keep a lot of that's just to try to keep something different for the customers to keep coming to and trying something or asking questions or just keep them coming in the doors. So I'm always up thinking late every night and just looking at other people's YouTube videos and looking at what they're doing and see how I could kind of incorporate some of that into our operation just a little bit, or try to make some of the ways or labor on us a little bit less intense.
Nathan, what about you? You've mentioned a couple things, but
I guess the things that keep me up at night are just need to quit watching the news and go back to farming. Enjoy it a little bit more. Just with the state of the union right now and where we're at. I have 5 kids, and it does concern me, so it does keep me up at night. And as any farmer will tell you, weather and change of seasons too. That's always in the back of your mind.
All right, y'all. We're running up on 8:30. So my last question to the panelists would be, what, if anything, can CFA do for y'all as an organization?
Keep pushing and pretty much doing what you're doing in my eyes. I think you're doing the best that you can with what you got and what you know and with the cards that were dealt. And just thanks for listening and watching and looking at farmers. And you're doing an awesome job, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think just being a voice for the small scale farmer in the state of Kentucky, and just listening. I think the organization does a great job of that, and listening to what is happening throughout the state. What's happening in our region, it may not be happening in another region, and just keeping me as a small scale farmer in the loop of what's happening throughout the state and how we can work together on issues and resolve that. I think the issue with the fees going up on the kitchens and so forth, I think that was a great representation of what we can do together. And I appreciate all the help that we did get on that.
David, Adrienne, is there anything that y'all need or could foresee needing?
You got, like the guys
I would
said.
like to thank you all for. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I thank you for what you do, and I'll speak up for the farmers conference thing. That is always good. I have learned a whole lot from attending some of those. That it has helped. It gives you pointers to hear from somebody else that's had to struggle before you go all the way down that rabbit hole to realize you've messed up. You got to back up. But I really enjoy that. And again, helping, seems like any time that there's an issue that gets brought up in Frankfort, you all are good to try to jump in and help. And what Nathan said, you listen to what's going on. We don't have a voice as singles, but as a group, there is a voice.
I concur with the gentleman. You are doing a wonderful job speaking up for the small farmer and giving us more time to farm and take care of what we need to do while you guys watch our back and help us take care of policy.
Well, y'all were supposed to give us more work, not tell us how good we were doing. Thank y'all. That's very kind.
Hey, I saw somebody asked a question or was a story. Can I answer that real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
It's here in Munfordville, Kentucky. It's exit 65 on 65. And so you just right off of 31. When you come to the McDonald's, once you get off of the interstate, it's pretty much to your left. Once you pass the red light, once you go through McDonald's, right as soon as you get close to the 5-star gas station, and it's right across from the Pizza Hut and Super 8 Motel. So it's right off of 65.
All right. Anybody out there have last questions you want to ask before we wrap this up? No? Oh.
I'm going to say one thing quickly. Thank you for everybody. I'm not ending this, but as when we solicit, part of the thing that we're doing too, I think, is helping consumers understand your situations. And as I write my letters to recruit members of CFA, I hope I'm not going to quote you by name, but I'd like to take some of these quotes of where you talked about how the kind of awesome job CFA is doing. I'm not taking credit for that at all. I'm watching it happen, but it really helped us, and we can talk about farmers and why CFA is important to you. So thank you very much.
All right, and I'll pass the mic over to
farmers for
Matt.
their help in the revolution. Hello.
And I'll pass
I want
pass
to
the mic
I
over
want to
to.
thank CFA.
Go ahead.
I want to thank CFA and the farmers for their help and support during the revolution. It's really greatly appreciated.
All right, we'll pass the mic over to Matt. Go ahead, Maggie.
All right, guys. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We had a great turnout. All the panelists, you guys have dropped so much wisdom on us. It's going to make us do our work better. I just want to do a couple housekeeping things, the parts of meetings that most people don't like. But we are in the middle of launching a strategic plan for CFA. It is about to be launched at our annual meeting on December 4th. We would really love for y'all to fill out a follow-up survey, all the participants on this call that we're going to send after this. It's not very long, but it's directly related to work that we're doing. So please, when you get that in your email, fill it out. It's going to be taken with like the utmost importance in this next process that we're doing, because we do want it to be of the people, and we want to be an organization that listens. So please do that. Also, we have 3 more of these ag chats happening in the next 3 Thursdays. So I dropped in the chat box the link to CFA's events page, which is cfaky.org/events. They're also on our Facebook page. If y'all go on there and register for other events on healthy food access, climate change, and equity in ag, we would love to have you there to talk more about how we can implement those things into our work deeper and to get a better idea of how that's happening on the ground. So just to plug, our annual meeting is December 4th. Please, please, please join us. It's one day. We've packed it full of good stuff, and a lot of these ag chats are going to be the fodder for what that conversation has to offer. So again, thank y'all for joining us.
Thank you.
Kelsey has thrown that event link back in there, so y'all go register right now. But if there's not any last minute questions, we have about 5 minutes left. So if folks do want to unmute themselves and we can just jump in and say last minute thoughts or anything like that, y'all can feel free to do that. Oh, one other exciting thing. This conversation today is going to be turned into a Breaking Beans podcast episode. So there will be a very polished recording of this going out on the topic of producers doing this pandemic pivot dance that we've been seeing. So you can subscribe on all of your major podcast channels, and Shelby is the host of that. So that's all I have.
Y'all did awesome. Totally awesome. And I really, really, really appreciate the farmers. You have my heart. Thank you.
The podcast will be something to listen to on the drive to Crab Orchard.
Right.
All right. Well, good night, y'all. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully see you next week.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everybody.